collect to select which projects we would use. So we looked at things like how the levels of completion. When we analyzed the projects, we found that some learners had not done anything, or they would have had put one sprite or one character and they had no code. They had not included any code for their projects, which was deemed unusable by Dr. Scratch. And for this project, as I said, they were asked to complete unsupervised projects. As a primary researcher, I was merely there to guide them when questions arise. And we used adopted a tool from Moreno Leon, which measures competence levels of each computational thinking concept that was used. And we have 7 concepts that were measured by the tool, which is data presentation, flow control, which measures logical thinking. We have user interactivity, which also measures synchronization, parallelism, and abstraction.
In fact, in Mauritius, among the 6 conglomerates that I chose, there was only ENL, the ENL group, and the Arel group, which used Facebook to recruit staff. And the final reason why they use Facebook is to build the image of company, corporate reputation. And this, from the data, we see that this is the major reason why they are using Facebook. We have 53.7%. And among those 53.7%, we have practically 20% of those messages that are about the corporate social responsibility of the organization. So they use their Facebook to let people know what are they doing as their CSR initiatives. Then also, they use Facebook to build their image by telling their stakeholders about their achievement. For example, here we have ABC Banking Corporation, which won an award. So they are going to probably post this on their Facebook page to build their image. And also, they use Facebook to talk about their activities that they are sponsoring. Okay, so you have sponsorship, the third one. And also, another common practice of conglomerates, it is going to be they post messages about their employees, achievements of their employees within their organization. So they want to feature themselves as a responsible, as a trustworthy employee.
Downward pressures on sales and increased supply chain competitions, which is a signal to retailers to redesign their supply chain and offer better services to their customers or consumers and ensure that there is product availability. This study discusses the framework on how best we can design the retail supply chain through incorporating resilience into the supply chain and reduce disruptions. Faced with a lot of disruptions, we have the market turnaround time, we have the dynamic change in consumer demand, the natural disasters, and at the end of the day, businesses are expected to deliver quality services to their consumers and at the same time earn profits. Faced with these disruptions in the environment, do we think the industry is capable to withstand all these adverse effects? In 2012, Mandel suggested that the most critical area in supply chain design is now resilience as a concept. So resilience means that despite all these external forces that exert pressure on the environment in the supply chain or wherever it is, business environment, it still continues to perform optimally. Resilience can also mean the backup plans or contingency plans that the business will have in case they face issues or disruptions. This study describes a situation where a business may find itself in, where when all these external pressures in the economy or the environment is changing all the time. The context of this study is on the fast-moving consumer goods, focusing on the retail side of the supply chain, that is the inbound to the retailers and outbound to the consumers. This paper is going to test the model of supply chain design, which was proposed by Melnick in 2014. The paper combines the contingency and dynamic capability theory to shed light on how best retail stores can understand this environment through the supply chain design, and then it will build a capacity that can enable them to be resilient and reduce disruptions that affect them.
It is challenging and intuitive because marketing is a discipline, and you have to adapt our cases to the Mauritian reality, because I think since the past 20 years, little by little marketing is getting ingrained in the Mauritian community. The other research question came from adapting local practices to the local curriculum, to the Mauritian. So what could be local practices? From the management area, it could be a bit sustainable development or ethics. Now you can have it in Mauritius. From the marketing and IT lecturers, you're going to have local legislation, a bit marketing practices, deregulation. And from the business studies lecturer, maybe they're going to have what we call role models, and also courses that could be more stimulating to the student. Okay. And the final one was from decolonizing. So this was the central idea of the research itself, about decolonizing the course itself. So there should be a good compromise from the IT lecturer. Accounting, we need to have a decolonized curriculum, but at the same time we have to consider international trends, because you have bodies like ACCA, CIMA and others that are coming with new ideas. So these new ideas should be also blended with the local one. And from the business studies lecture, evidently, a mix of both worlds could be interesting in the process of not really decolonizing the curriculum, but adapting it and making it practical for the local environment. And the conclusion, a bit in general. So our students were selected from a group of 20-30 who wanted to follow the program, and they were asked to intervene, because you have to understand the learner's voice in curriculum development, not only from academia but also from students. So you had the examples of case studies, references, etc. in our courses. And ideally, since we are an independent country and we are a republic, so students were in favor of a decolonized curriculum. But also, they were born in 1980, so their perception, they don't have really the idea of what is decolonization really, because those who were born around 68 or earlier, they might have a better idea of it. But this just was the information I got. And the final conclusion would be, from the lecturer's point of view, now some courses are new and should be adapted to the local reality. And that's very important. When you have a decolonized curriculum, means that we can exploit the local environment. We can look at values and virtues that we have developed locally, and make the students also keen to learn and apply knowledge from the local context. So that's very, very important at all levels. But we also believe that we can avoid the foreign models. Since we are been in this conference in the morning, we are taking just ideas from the external environment, artificial intelligence, blockchain, crypto, etc. So we can avoid these. There's a need also to blend our local environment, our local learning structure with the foreign one. So these were some of the conclusions that we developed from this study. So in general, it was challenging because there was a rubric over there written decolonizing the curriculum. So very often we have been thinking critically about it, why we should decolonize, and is there a purpose to decolonize the curriculum? So when we are at the university level, very often we are graduates, we get our degree from abroad, and we come from foreign learning environment, and we want to apply to the local environment. What's interesting now is that the students, we don't know them who they are. So they're just like you. They come from a new perspective, they come from secondary schools, and it's our turn to think about how we can provide such learning which is very instructive, interesting, stimulating for them. So if we just borrow from what we have from the books and elsewhere, it's going to be the same type of rote learning and so on. But we try to adapt it to the needs of the local environment is going to be very interesting. And the fact that Mauritius is changing at a fast pace and many new things are now getting in the environment So it's also good to find out information from the local environment and make it tailor-made to the needs of the students. So at one time, we are in favor of decolonizing, but also, since we're living in a global environment, there's also a need to blend international with the local learning. So these were some of the perspectives of decolonizing the curriculum. So thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
That I developed this interest in academic writing, and I think it's getting along the years from bad to worse. And you can see the sad lot that comes to us from primary to secondary and then higher education. So what I've tried to do in the study is explore a little bit to what extent are ICTs used at the Open University of Mauritius in the teaching and learning of academic writing. And as you all academics know, academic writing is so very important because that's the way that learners express their subject knowledge. So whether it's management or math or, or marketing or language or whatever, and it's through this medium that their knowledge is eventually assessed. And when they get their writing wrong, so this eventually impacts their performance. Right, so that's, the context is the Open University of Mauritius, and I looked at one cohort to BA Honours English. And what's good to know about the context, especially for those who are not Mauritian, is that it is English as a second language. And for some Mauritians, I even dare to say it's a foreign language because they are not really used to it. And it shows in their writing.
The title of my study is Supply Chain Management, Marketing Integration, a key element in the digital era. Okay, and the topic related to the title is digitalization, supply chain management, marketing, supply chain management, and marketing integration. Now, what are the driving forces in the digital environment? We have technology and the evolution of the internet. The evolution of the internet we have mainly moving from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0 and the transition of moving to Web 3.0. Some industries, some countries in the world have already turned to Web 3.0. And the result of this digital move, we have Industry 4.0 with new business practices, philosophies, the change in production and operation concepts. We're going to have change in communication tools from what we used to have verbal communication, letters, memos. We're moving towards social platforms, website, video conferencing. We are having change in inventory, warehousing, and product tracking system. Now, a brief overview of the definition. CIM, simple supply chain management, by simple definition, is getting the right product in the right place at the right time. Okay? Marketing can be defined as all the activities related to the creation, defining, communicating, and delivering value to customers, clients, and the society at large. So from these two simple definitions, I think you can see how these two definitions, these two fields of study are integrated. That is why many researchers find this topic interesting, and many papers have been written in this context. However, in 2010, Manza and Gunlach declared that the topic of CRM and marketing has not been explored in depth. Okay, and this is why I have decided to write this paper taking into consideration this move toward digitalization.
This topic is on the dimensions of supply risk in water supply in one of the districts. Unfortunately, I'm using a pseudonym because municipalities are linked to all those political areas. Right. Basically here I'm looking at the upstream and the downstream and how the two can interact so that we can absorb the risk of water supply. That is the summary of my research article statement. And I will look at, we have used the force field theory, looking at the driving forces and also other areas that are creating problems in water supply. Right. There are two key things. Looking at the downstream side, the demand chain management, we don't have good approaches in analyzing the demand of water in different districts or different areas in South Africa, especially in rural areas. The second one is the capacity. Municipalities are not investing much on human capacity, on technological capacity, just to make sure that the supply side is being actually run in an effective way. On the other side, our infrastructure is aging. We need to actually revamp that infrastructure, or rather develop a complete new infrastructure. Then maybe we can be in a position to move our water, especially to those rural areas. But the other problem we're facing in South Africa is what we call special economic zones in each province. And those new industries also are using huge amount of water. Now that is creating a competition. And that kind of competition is linked directly to the risk. Right, and the other normal things, the growing population. We have informal settlements in every corner. And the big problem when it comes to water supply is the wasted amount of water in every area. That's the problem. In urban areas, pipes are leaking. In what they call informal settlement, they leave all taps, the water is running and stuff. That's where they are making the mistake. Maybe if we can look at that. On the other side, the climate change. Gage was talking about all these disasters we've been experiencing for the last couple of years. The other part is on industrialization in South Africa. We took this brave decision on industrialization, creating special economic zone. We have what we call dual-trade port. We did not look at the supply of electricity, and we've been having load shedding. Now the next big thing, big crisis will be water. We won't have water, and which means this industry might not be operating for the next couple of months. Anyway, these are other things, as I've said earlier. I'm using a pseudonym just to protect this municipality. The study was qualitative, was done, I can reveal that, in Zululand, a rural what we call area. And the structure in that area is also a problem because there are mountains. Now, if you have to distribute water to those areas, you just need to invest more on the infrastructure. The piping system, the delivery system using trucks, all those things are really, really creating problems. Then we looked at that in terms of the risk in the water supply. There's a definition of supply chain risk there. Just a couple of points here. The supply of water, because water is an essential what we call component, so it's linked to our constitutional what we call section 27. We need all those rights and everything. And the service delivery. if the service is not delivered in any area, you can actually see people doing this, right? I don't know whether the Mauritian can understand that concept, that when people are on black cards and are complaining about the service that is not delivered, but we do it in style, in a very violent way, so that they can get what we're trying to to get from those municipalities. About 30 municipalities under this district, about 400,000 occupants on those 5 local authorities. We're talking about rural areas, and there are mountains all over the place. Those are remote areas, and everything is but modern. Build the new infrastructure, backlogs that should be catered for, all those things. It's a mess.
In terms of connectivity, most of them were using mobile data to connect, because in the villages you don't find Wi-Fi, you don't find landlines, telecom, you don't find that. Now, when it comes to how they use these devices, basically, when it comes to feature phones, they use them for phone calls and SMS, and of course to store business information like the customer contacts, supplier contacts, smartphones as well. But they also use smartphones to communicate with the supplier and the customers. So they're using WhatsApp to do that. I mentioned the flash device. This is the device that they mentioned that they use it to sell airtime, they use it to sell electricity, they use it to sell data, and they also use it to accept payments for DSTVs. They also use it for lotto payments. They also use speed point devices. They use it for a service called cashback. So a customer would come to a spaza shop, customer wants cash, because in the villages there are no ATMs, right? As customer wants cash, so the customer will swipe the card, and the spaza shop will give the cash to the customer, and then the customer will have to pay a certain percentage based on the amount that the customer wants. And the applications, the most popular is like I mentioned before, instant messaging, social networking, email. But I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to go through this. I'm just going to go to the conclusion. Okay, maybe implications. Now, in terms of implications, what I found is that here, none of the managers of spaza shops are using sophisticated web applications, mobile applications. So their adoption of ICT is based on basic technology, like mobile phones, smartphones. None of them are using cloud services.
You might see him at the next election. And also, some of them are quite scared to go and meet the communities, because they meet with the communities first. The communities say, we want 1, 2, and 3. And they go back, and the municipality have done nothing. So they're a bit afraid to go back to the community. You get it? So there hasn't been much of an engagement with the councils. I mean, you're looking at by the way, I'm a ratepayer in Durban, and at the end of the day, there has to be a redistribution. We've got to address all the issues. But service delivery should be at the core, and basic service delivery. You get it? In the last 25 years, the number of shacks has increased. You get it? People do not have access to water. People are still taking water from the river. And this is unacceptable, you see. And if you're paying high taxes, you're paying rates, the money has got to be put to good use, you see.
Very sensitive information, such as location, contacts, and even, as we heard this morning, health information about users. But also the explosive growth of the mobile app industry in the last few years has resulted in a situation where there's simply huge numbers of app downloads, and the data industry that is driven by the data collected by these apps presents a huge risk of data privacy infringements. We're talking about both data and metadata. Both can fall within the legal definition of personal information. if they can be tracked to an identifiable individual. And in South Africa, that would also extend to a juristic person. And we're also talking about, very broadly, both collection and data sharing practices, which are ubiquitous in the mobile environment. So the research question that the study seeks to address is an understanding of the position of SMMEs in South Africa who are engaged in mobile app development. So essentially this was an exploratory study, and it was aimed at informing the legal analysis with a picture of the mobile ecosystem in South Africa, with some understanding of how app developers, and particularly app developers who fall within the demographic of SMMEs, understand and think about privacy. The rationale for it is that without that interdisciplinary approach, regulators are not placed to, in fact, develop enforceable and workable guidelines. So the study sought to address 4 research questions. It sought to examine what the levels of knowledge were of the app developers, of privacy legislation, what their attitudes were to data privacy requirements, what technical tools or strategies they were using to embed privacy in the design and deployment of their apps, and what unique challenges they reported as small app developers.
Municipal governance is a question, can we deal with this? And from a South African perspective, we see that there's different elements of 4IR in different departments across the country. But the question is, there is no single blueprint that brings all of these advancements for one. And I know in Mauritius, there is a single thought process of how you move forward. But in South Africa, we have different national departments all fighting each other, trying to be better. We have municipalities trying to outdo other municipalities. So there is a lot of fighting that's happening, but there's no integration, there's no assistance, and nobody can determine how do we help each other to grow together. So this is coming now from a government paper on the 4IR and how we move forward. So the president of our country, current president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, in 2018 indicated that the only way we can do this is if we have a digital industrial revolution commission by the South African government. So we can bring together all these stakeholders and start talking one language. And he's pronounced on this, and he's now creating such a commission. Hopefully we will be able to then have one voice when it comes to 4IR within the South African government and within the municipalities in South Africa. So the government framework is, we're looking at policy changes, we're looking at how do we deal with service delivery challenges, and we also want to look at employment as an issue, as well as to look at the issue, if we go the 4IR route, will it erode on the workforce? Can we change skills levels?
We used was strongly disagree, agree, and strongly agree. We didn't want to ask people who did not know anything about supply chain, so we ignored the neutral part of it. We ignored them. So from that, 40 questions were returned, and 37 were usable out of the 60 which were initially sent. So that gave us about 60% response rate. And we used the SPSS in order to analyze the data. The results there of that, in order to test the validity of the instrument, we used Cronbach alpha, which gave us 0.876, then which was favorable because according to most researchers, they say if it is above 0.07, it is a good and a better. Then descriptive statistics was also used in order to maybe try to find out such things like the mean, to find out how far the people were agreeing whether these are current trends in supply chain. And on average, you would see that like competition, they had at the highest with 3.4, and product life cycle the lowest mean of 3.1, which meant generally the interviewees, they agreed that these were current trends. And also we regressed the constructs, and we got an R squared value of 0.5525. Then we also tried to correlate the relationships between or among the variables there. Demand planning and competition correlated at a strength of about 49% there, at a 10% significance level, which meant that if performance can be improved, then globalization or there can also be improved there. Then globalization and competition correlated at a strength, this was on the lower side there, of about 47%. So maybe because when you look at global levels there could be other factors, the country factors and what they do that maybe made competition or other factors outside maybe. Then given the R value of 0.205, 0.525, it can be concluded that the constructs have an influence on organizational performance. So as a result of the R squared value that we got, then results from the research also showed that increasing the level of acceptance, supply chain trends such as outsourcing performance of companies will be improved. Because when you look at outsourcing, we're saying it's something that we have been doing as an organization inside, and then we say, okay, let's give it to an outside company, and then we concentrate on our core business. Maybe let's take, for instance, an institution like KwaZulu-Natal. If they had a canteen, then if they decided to say, we now have to outsource the canteen activities, and then we concentrate on giving lectures and other issues to do with lecturing, then eventually they have to improve their performance there. Because when other issues that are to do with canteen, when they come problems to do with canteen, they are not going to be fighting those problems. It is the company that has been also going to be looking.
At this conference, everything should be people-centered when we talk about IT and Africanization. So people is also that element that brings together all four of these pillars of the framework. I think this is general, more or less, what happens at all universities in terms of academia, but what we tend to forget are the external factors. And there we have, again, opposing forces. On the one hand, we have the forces of localization and Africanization. On the other hand, we have the forces of globalization. And they kind of influence each other and work against each other. And then on the other side of the figure, we have the implications. And that is how we can use all of these concepts to internationalize or Africanize information systems. When we talk about localization, I think that's the force that's promoting Africanization. And we have concepts like Ubuntu that's being researched in many fields on how we can build that into academia. We have indigenous knowledge systems. And I think what we should realize is that identities are always fluid and change as we go. So we should also be open for that and allow that process to take place. Working against it is the forces of globalization, which may impede Africanization, where we can see technology as a colonial actor with built-in Western concepts deep into the technology, and we could even talk about something like an autocracy, where what we do and what we think is demanded by those values that are built into autocracy. And this is very often linked to Westernization and the binary logic that the computer is built on. And this tends to homogenize education.
Apps, right? So what this means is that there are measurements in place that work well for the static desktop apps, but for some reason they fail for the mobile apps, and I'm going to discuss why just now. So as a suggestion, literature signals this concept of machine learning, right? It's obviously a more positive approach, and it's proven to help improve reliability rates. Okay, so the overall aim of my study is basically to determine the most suitable machine learning algorithm for reliability prediction for mobile applications. The objective is basically to conduct a literature search on various studies on machine learning and then determine the algorithm that actually works the best for prediction. Now, I know I've thrown in a lot of terms here, but I'm going to discuss them just now. Okay, so moving on, right? As I mentioned, there are current measurements in place to help with the static desktop apps. And these measurements are known as reliability growth models. Now, these models have been used to estimate the reliability of software. So what is this all about? Okay, so let's understand. Normally, it is only after software has been shipped out to the customers that reliability is indicated through customer feedback, to problem reports, crash reports, and at this point, it's actually very late. So the vendors need to know this before the software is shipped out. So as a result, we have these SRGMs, and they have been proven to be successful with the static and stable desktop apps. But let's understand, as I mentioned, mobile apps function very differently. Okay, so what makes mobile apps different? Right, I've listed a few, and these are the challenges. Firstly, it's a very fast-paced industry. Developers have to work seamlessly to keep up with the recent trends and developments. Also, these apps need to satisfy a very wide user base. Okay? Also, there are challenges with apps needing to run on the various operating system platforms. Now, if you have to compare mobile devices, you will see that it's very rare that one device is using the same version of an operating system compared to another, right? And then apart from the challenges across platforms, there is also challenges within the same platform, like within a single device. You have things like device memory, speed, screen sizes, resolutions, and now the app obviously has to adapt to all of these issues.
Then the response rate from the questionnaire was 80%. That is 24 of the respondents out of the 30,000 managed to respond. Then the interview response rate was 75%. The first objective was to find the challenges. The study found out on the major challenges that are faced by these microfinance organizations. These people, they lack the technology infrastructure. Since we are saying they fall under the small to medium enterprises, these organizations tend to have little or less capital in order to build up the infrastructure to apply e-commerce. Then the second factor was low and unstable connections. In Zimbabwe, sometimes the internet connection is down and maybe due to shutdown, electricity shutdown, so customers cannot easily connect to that e-commerce application because of these network challenges that we have. Then the lack of knowledge about e-commerce, we say that unawareness, some of these clients are not aware of the availability of the e-commerce thing. Then high cost of installing the e-commerce application, then the issue of security and trust. You find that some other people, they are so reserved, they don't want the information to be known, so they want to keep it confidential. So those are the major challenges hindering the adoption of e-commerce by these microfinance institutions. Then the second objective was to find on the benefits of e-commerce. We found that the major benefit that accrue to an organization is that of increased profits. We all agree that when an organization gets into business, they need to have more profits and as well to expand. If these organizations are likely to employ, to have e-commerce, they are likely to increase their profits. Then cost reduction. We are saying we are using the mobile, telephone and everything. That reduces transaction cost moving from one town to another when you want to do a transaction. Then the customer convenience, you can do it in the comfort of your home, and as well it saves time when you are applying these benefits that accrue to e-commerce adoption.
So the title of the study is The Headmaster in Mauritius, an instructional leader in promoting pupils' academic achievement, a case study. So let's look at the aim of the study. The aim of the study is to examine the instructional leadership role of the school head in promoting pupils' achievement in primary schools. And the research question is, we would like to know what is the instructional leadership role of the school head of primary schools in Mauritius. So I don't know if I think it would be better for me to give a definition of what instructional leadership is. So instructional leadership is an approach used by the school head to focus on educators' behavior in certain tasks that impact on the academic achievement of learners. Means that while the school head is leading the school, what are the different functions? What are the different behavior that he must have in order to impact or improve the academic performance of the learners? So, in fact, there are many types of leadership, but this type of leadership, instructional leadership style, is found to be the most important because it is related to promoting and improving the learners' learning and thus their academic achievement. Now, the first or the earliest theory on instructional leadership by Hallinger and Murphy mentions only 3 dimensions of instructional leadership, mainly defining the school mission, managing the curriculum and instruction, and promoting school learning climate. However, I have done an overview of literature on the various dimensions of instructional leadership, and I have come to this one. So we have got various authors, and I have tried to identify what dimensions of instructional leadership they have found in their studies. And you can see which are the most important one in the list. There are many.
Would like to have a choice, and the choice is there with various local providers of web TV. And YouTube and Facebook have proved to be tools that would allow the producers to know exactly the preferred content of their consumers. In Mauritius, people are crazy about news and politics, and this blend may be very explosive, and web TV produces this blend. And these local web TV producers know how to get the news and politics blended to give to their consumers. What have we seen else? We've seen that the audience has been consistently picking up over the years. Besides, if we look at the statistics summary of YouTube standing at 10th May, we'll see that Ion News, a local web TV provider focusing on news reporting, has as many as 50,000 subscribers and thousands of visitors. For Teleplus, there are about 148,805 subscribers on 10th May. For One TV, 51,000 regular followers out of 70,000 visitors. You know, tens of hours are uploaded on YouTube every day, because every minute there are items of news, there are items of other discussion forums that are uploaded. And the young people would say they are on YouTube, they don't have time to watch national TV. However, we found also that both web TV and traditional TV are bound to stay and even coexist. The 50+ people watch the sitting of the Legislative Assembly on NBC, for example, every Tuesday or every Friday. They complain at times that web TV provides simply sensational news. But according to Antennas Direct, there is a big chunk of people nearing 50 plus, who would have the blend of national TV broadcast and web TV as well. And we want to probe into that to get the figure right as research. The youth would prefer web TV for ease of convenience, for ease of accessibility. They've got their mobile devices, so it's very easy for them to access whatever is provided. But we are living in this era of regulatory inertia. We heard it. You know, technology goes fast, regulations lag behind. And in the absence of proper regulatory frameworks, we apprehend that anybody might come forward and say they are a producer of web TV without proper training, formal training.